Hey everyone, this is John with Boardroom Gaming. We're here taking a look at My Little Scythe. It's brought to us by Stonemeyer Games. Plays 1 to 6 players, ages 8 and older, in about 45 minutes. You've probably heard of regular Scythe and all the expansions that are tied to it. This is supposed to be a slightly more simplified version of that game, but still maintain some of the same characteristics and gameplay. So we're going to sit down and take a look at the setup, we'll look at the rules and gameplay, and then we'll do a quick recap to see just how similar these two games are. All right, so we got our game board set up here for 4 players. We'll go through each step one by one so you can kind of see how it'll progress. You start by picking a base camp, and that's these circular tiles here that you can see on the board. You're going to put one in each location, and that's going to vary depending on the number of players. For 2 players, it's going to go one at the top and one at the bottom. For 3 players, you kind of make a triangle out of it. 4 players, as you can see, we have the 4 corners set up here, making a square. 5 players, you're going to add in one more spot up at the top. And for 6 players, you're going to fill in all 6 spots that are on the map that have the little tent logo on them. Once you pick out your starting locations, each person's going to get a player mat. And we'll talk more about that when we go to the actions that you take. You take your player mat, and then there's a matching token color. It's going to be this little guy here. In this case, I'll be showing you what the yellow player setup is going to look like. You put your 4 trophy tokens on your trophy mat. You place your friendship tokens, which are these over here, these triangular hearts. Each player starts with their friendship token on the 3 spot over here on this track. You can see it goes from 0 to 10. It's pretty easy to match up. The symbol on the token will match the symbol underneath the track. Everybody starts at 3. Then you're going to place your pie token, which is this set over here, again on 3. And you're going to match the token, the pie on the token, with the pie on the track so that you can keep them situated. You're going to shuffle quest cards, which are these yellow cards over here. Shuffle them and make a deck out of them. And everything is called out on the board where it goes. You'll see a little quest square on there. Then you're going to shuffle the magic cards, which are these purple cards over here. Each player is going to get one of them, and then you're going to put the rest of the deck on its spot on the board. You're going to keep your spell cards a secret. These are used during combat. You're going to shuffle up the power tiles, which are these over here. There's a stack of green and a stack of blue. Shuffle them and put them face down on the board. The part that I already did here in the instructions, there's this setup tile. There's a blank red side and then a side that kind of matches the layout of the board here. You're going to set this face down and you're just going to start spinning it. And however it ends, spin it, stop, you're going to flip it over and reveal it. And then this tells you how to set up the board. So the way I have it set up looks like this one. So you can see it's got a symbol for each one of the resources. You're just going to place however many players you have. You're going to place those symbols on the three tiles shown on the setup tile here. Put both of your seekers on the base camp. They are identical. It does say that the differences in them are purely cosmetic, and I didn't notice this until just setting this up. But one of them, and I don't know if you'll be able to see it in the camera, but one of them is slightly darker than the other. That's really the only difference. Otherwise, they're the exact same thing. Not that that really means anything, but one of them is a little bit darker. And then you're going to shuffle personality cards, and these are the cards that have this red back on them, red back with a shield. Shuffle them up. Each player gets one, and this is another one that you're going to keep secret. These are kind of like not really an objective, but you have these goals over here that you're trying to meet, and these personality cards kind of give you an edge on how to complete those objectives. So that's the setup. Again, this is for 4 players. The setup instructions they don't really change much. The only thing that changes with the number of players is where your base camps go. So that's set up. Let's take a look at the player board really quick, and then we'll get into how the turns work. All right, let's take a closer look at our player card. So there's the 4 trophy tokens across the top, our player pawn, and then there's 3 different types of actions you can take: move, seek, or make. And then within those actions is the actual action you're going to take. So we'll start with move because that's kind of the easiest to explain. So you're going to place your pawn on the gray circle next to the icons. And then you're going to have the option to move both of your seekers. If they're not carrying any resources, you can move them 2 spaces. If they are carrying resources, they would take the resources with them and they would only move 1 space. Next up is seek. This is how resources get added to the game. So you would pick one of the 2 circles in seek, and then depending on which one you choose, you're either going to roll 2 of the red, 1 blue, and 1 yellow die, or you're going to roll 2 blue, a red, and a yellow die. And this is just dependent on which resource you want more on the board. Red would be more apples, and blue would be more gems. The last one is make. So this one is where you're kind of taking resources, and turning them into other things. So the very first circle there has you trading in 2 apples to move your pie marker up 2 spaces on the pie track. The second one has you turning in 2 gems to get 1 magic spell. And the third one has you turning in 1 apple and 1 gem to upgrade one of your action spots. Alright, so we have our game set up, we got our player board set up, so let's kind of talk through the objectives you're trying to get. You have these 4 trophy tokens on your player card. What you're trying to do is get them off your player card and moving them up here where you're claiming these achievements. And you're going to check for this at the end of your turn. So if at the end of your turn you have your friendship marker at 8 or higher, you're going to move your trophy token onto that square and you claim the objective. If you've upgraded 2 of your tiles on your player card, you're going to claim this objective. If you have 3 magic cards, you're going to claim this objective. If you've completed 2 quests, you'll claim this objective. If you've turned in 4 gems to the castle here in the middle, you'll be able to claim this objective. If you've turned in 4 apples to the castle, you'll claim this objective. If you've won a pie fight, you claim this objective, and if your pie track is at 8 or higher, again noted by the little trophy symbol, you'll claim this last objective. So not only do you have to meet those requirements at the end of your turn, but you've also got to be higher than a 2 on the friendship track. So you can see it notes no trophies over here. It's got the trophy symbol X'd out. You have to be out of that area of friendship in order to actually claim one of the objectives. Let's talk through how you'll be doing that by using your player card. So we talked about the 3 different sections here: move, seek, and make. Let's talk about how each one of those works really quick. So if you put your marker here on move, this lets you move both of your seekers independently. If they're not carrying any resources, you can move them 2 spaces, 1, 2. If they were carrying resources, you would only be able to move them 1 space. So if this seeker was here, and I wanted to start moving him towards this portal, he would take the gem with him, he would move 1 space, and that would be the end of his turn. If you're using the move action to go from portal to portal, it does count as 1 move. They're considered adjacent tiles. So again, on my turn, if I were to be picking the move action, I would take this apple and gem, and I could move him all the way over here to this portal, but that would be his 1 move. You can also move to the castle using the portals, again as 1 move, but you can only do that if you're turning in the resources. And again, you have to have exactly 4 of those resources to turn in. If you have anything extra, they'll just stay on whatever spot that your seeker was on, and you'll only turn in the 4 that you need to meet the objective. So let's put these guys back. I think these were here and here, or something like that. The next one, seeking, and you only pick one of these actions on each turn. So seeking, again, you have these dice here. There's 2 red, a blue, and a yellow. And you're going to roll them. And then depending on which colors are showing on the dice, that's going to tell you where you're going to place these resources. So I've got an apple going to green, an apple going to white, a gem going to yellow, and then a quest, which is the gold die, going to the green section. So I'm going to pick up my 2 apples, my gem, and my quest. So when you're placing apples or gems, there's really no stipulation behind it other than you can't place them, other than the starting ones, you can't place them on the portal tiles. So, and then the colored dice refers to the color of the area. So I need to place 1 apple anywhere in this green area. So I'm just going to place it here. My other apple, so that's this dice, my other apple is going to go to the white area. My gem needs to go into the yellow area. And then when it comes to the quests can't be placed on any tiles that already have a quest or have a seeker on them. So when I'm looking in this green area, I just need to make sure I'm not placing this on a tile that has a quest on it already or another seeker. So I'm going to place it here. The blue, the second section for seeking works exactly the same way, only you're going to be rolling for more gems than you are apples. When you're placing resources, when you're placing the apples or gems on the map, if you were to place one of those resources on a space that has one of the other seekers, you would be able to move your friendship marker up 1 space for each resource that gets there. So it's kind of looked at as you're doing another player a favor because you're giving them some of the resources they might need that they want to spend or turn into the castle. So it moves your friendship marker up 1 space. When we go to make, so you can see there's 3 different actions there. And if we were to have these 2 apples together, so when you're making something, you're using the resources that you're considered to be carrying. So if I wanted to turn these 2 apples into 2 pies, I would discard these 2 resources, and then the pie marker over here for yellow would go up 2 spaces, would go up to 5. And that would be considered making. So you're turning in the resources on the board that you have control of, that you're carrying, to move your pie marker up 2. The one below it, this gem one, works exactly the same way, only you're going to be turning in 2 gems to draw one of the magic cards. And this last one, you're turning in 1 apple and 1 gem. 1 apple, 1 gem would get discarded off to the side if you controlled it to pick up, to upgrade one of these 2 tiles. So you can upgrade your move and you can upgrade your make. And you can only do it 1 time per game. So when you're picking one, so let's just say I'm gonna upgrade my move tile. I would draw the top 3 cards off of this deck. I would look at which one benefits me the most, and they all have some kind of a different benefit. So you can see here I have Adventure Balloon, and this says, as one of my moves, I can move one of my seekers directly to any space containing a quest, but I have to leave all the resources behind. So I can move as many spaces as I want to, as long as I'm going to a quest spot, but I'm abandoning my resources. This next one says Portal Express. Your seekers move between portals with no movement cost. So I said earlier, using these portals counts as a movement cost. If you were to use them and you had this enhancement, you wouldn't pay that cost anymore. It would be like a free move to move from portal to portal. And then this last one here, Wicked Wagon, says both seekers may make their own independent moves. And you can see on the bottom, there's a little underlined section there, the red underline. That's calling out what it is you're upgrading with your move section or any of the other tiles. So this is saying, if you remember the regular move, you could only move 1 space with resources. With this upgrade, you're able to move 2 spaces whether you have resources or not. So that's going to kind of help you get across the board faster with your resources. And I think that's the one that I'll keep. And then the other 2 would go down to the bottom. When you're picking your actions, so if I were to have picked this upgrade action before in the make section, on my next turn, I wouldn't be able to do that action again. I can still pick another make action, but it would have to be one of these other 2 where I'm spending either apples or gems. So you can pick multiple actions in the same section. You just can't pick the same action on your second turn. So if it got to my turn, I would have to either move to the apples, or I would move to a completely different action altogether. So let's talk a little bit more about moving here. There's a couple more things that can happen after you move So let's just say red here is going to take their 2 moves, 1, 2, and they end their turn there. You can see that it has this little quest token on it. So if you land on one that has a quest token, you're going to discard the token, and you're going to take the top quest card off the deck. And it's going to give you 3 options to choose from. So one is usually positive, one is negative, and one is basically just, no thanks, I don't want to. So this one, the test of strength, your options include winning the contest by paying 2 gems to gain 3 pies, run away with the prize, where you gain 3 pies but you lose 2 friendship, and then there's no thanks, where you gain 1 pie for visiting, and then instead of claiming this as a finished quest, it'll just go back to the bottom of the deck. So if you remember, one of your objectives is to have 2 completed quests. So if you wanted to complete this one and you were going to pay the 3 gems, you'd have to have one of your seekers on a space containing 3 gems. You would turn all those in, this would be completed. You'd gain your 3 pies on the pie track over there, and then this would just go face down or face up, however you want to do it, next to your player board. And then when you complete your second quest on your next turn, or whenever that happens, you would be able to claim this achievement here for having 2 completed quests. Um, if you were to do the negative one, it would be the same result. You would gain 3 pies, so you would move your pie marker up 3, but then you would have to move your friendship track down 2. And then no thanks is just neutral, so we'll say this was a no thanks. It'll go back to the bottom of the deck. So that's landing on a quest token. The other thing that can happen on the end of a move is a pie fight, which is essentially the combat in this game. So if green were to move over here 2 spaces, oh, that was more than 2. Let's just say they ended up on the same space. The 2 of them would go into combat. So because green would be moving the 2 spaces in, they would be considered the attacker. So they're both going to go to their little pie wheel here, and you can see here, when you're attacking, you lose 1 on the friendship marker. So green would move down 1 space on the friendship marker, and then this pie wheel is where you determine how much pie you're going to invest off of the pie track. So neither of these players has more than 3 pie, so the highest they can go is 3. So let's just say one of them goes with 3. They would also have the option, if they have any magic cards, like the one that we started with, to add that to their pie fight. And you're essentially just adding the 2 numbers together. So 3 plus 5 would give you a total of 8 pies. The other player would do the same thing. If the attacking player has an equal to or greater amount of pie when you reveal them, you're doing all this in secret, you're kind of holding this up so neither player can see it. You're adding the numbers together, you're going to reveal at the same time. And if the attacking player has equal to or more than the pie of the defending player, they would win. If the defending player has more than the attacking player, they would win. So ties are always going to go to the attacking player. And then depending on who wins, this card would get, for both players, this card gets discarded. Their pie track would go down, if we were moving green, would go down the 3 pies they used. And then the losing player would also get sent back to their base camp where they're rejuvenated. So let's say green was winning, red would go back to base camp and they would be rejuvenated. When they're rejuvenated, they would have the option of either moving their pie track back up 2 spaces. Reds should be at 0 as well. They could move their pie track up 2 spaces, or they can draw another magic card. And then they would also move their peg off of any actions that they chose. They would be able to choose any of those actions starting out their turn. So it's kind of like giving you a clean slate. It almost puts you back to resetting at the beginning of the game, depending on what you chose. But that's how combat works. So the ties always go to the attacking player. The losing player leaves their resources on the tile if they had any. They go back to base camp and they go through the rejuvenate process. You also go through rejuvenating if you were to drop off your 4 resources at the castle, because that also sends you back to your base camp. So again, you would either increase your pie counter up 2, You would draw a new magic card, and then you would have your free choice of action on your next turn. That's essentially how this whole game will play. Each player will take one of their actions, whether it's move, seek, or make. They'll check for any objectives that they've met. Once the first player has all 4 of their achievements moved up to an objective, that'll trigger endgame. Each other player will have one more chance to try to claim as many objectives as they can, and then the game will end, and then you'll declare a winner. So that's My Little Scythe. I'm sure right off the bat you can tell that the artwork between My Little Scythe and regular Scythe is completely different. My Little Scythe has a lot more of a animated look to it, whereas Scythe has that more realistic art look. And that kind of matches the style and weight of the game, I think. My Little Scythe is way lighter than what Scythe is. It's a lot more inviting looking, so if this were a new game to somebody, I don't think it's as intimidating to learn this game. It's only My Little Scythe is about half the playtime of what regular Scythe is, so you don't have nearly the investment involved. But with that being said, there's a lot of similarities between the two. They both play about the same amount of players. They both have their solo mode variation with their automated player that can be added in. The components are great. The box itself and the insert is great. They're both great games. They both have you can have a lot of fun with either game. It just depends which one you're really in the mood for. And if you want something that's more complex and more thinky, you're probably going to want to go with Scythe. If you just want something that you can play through and have a good time and not really be as involved with, you're probably going to go with My Little Scythe. But again, that's dependent on the player and the situation. So let me know in the comments below which one you think you would play more. And until next time, happy gaming.